Source students, it's Mrs. P again. It is an icy day today, so they've called off school, and I am trying to decide what to make for supper, and I thought about something called Tuscan chicken, which is really quite easy to make, and I really had my heart set on it until I realized I don't have pesto, and I don't have fresh basil, which is what you usually make pesto out of. So, but instead of giving up, I did some research and I found out that you can make pesto out of dried basil. So this is basil from my garden and I dried it. So we are going to make some homemade pesto and I'm going to have that Tuscan chicken tonight. So I also did not have any pine nuts, but I found out online that as long as you're using unsalted nuts, you can replace it with unsalted cashews or unsalted walnuts. I have walnuts, so we're going to use that, okay? So we're starting with a 1/4 cup of the unsalted walnuts, and they're going into my food chopper, okay? Let's pull this a little closer so you can see better. Okay, so into the chopper goes the walnuts. Then I need a 1/4 cup of Parmesan. And it's always better if you've got fresh Parmesan. I don't. So I'm using the ground Parmesan that I have, because I have quite a bit of that. And I really like Parmesan. So I got a little overboard with my 1/4 cup measure there. So 1/4 cup of Parmesan. The next thing is a clove of garlic. But unfortunately, I also don't have a clove of garlic, but I do have minced garlic. So I'm going to be using that, and a clove is about a heaping teaspoon of that. So I'm going to put in a good amount of garlic, and then 3 tablespoons of dried basil. So I'm going to crush it as I put it in, because typically when you buy dried basil, it's already crushed. So that's about 1. A handful crushed up is about a good healthy tablespoon. So there's 2 and 3. So I can always add more later if it's not as flavorful as I want it to be. Most of the time, dried herbs are going to be stronger flavored than the fresh ones, so be careful with that. And then the last thing I'm going to put in is about a tablespoon of lemon juice. So if you're not comfortable with just pouring, get out your measuring spoons, measuring cups and stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. This is my food chopper. Put it on. I'm going to blend this until it's chopped up really well and starting to make a paste. Okay? If you have a food processor, that'll work. So it's starting to make a paste. I'm going to get out my spatula, scrape the sides down so it's all down in. The walnuts are chopped up nice, so we're ready. Now, we're going to drizzle in just a little bit of olive oil. This is where a food processor probably would be better, because it has a spout that you can pour in while it's processing, which is actually better. But I'm going to do it little by little here. So I want about 6 tablespoons of olive oil drizzled in and mixed well. So that's about 3. It's starting to get liquidy, which is nice. Now this isn't going to have that real pretty bright green color that you get from fresh basil, but as long as the flavor's there, it'll be all right. So there's about 4. They're pretty generous tablespoons that I'm putting in there, so just going to watch it to see how much more I need. Oh, maybe just one more. And I'll show you what it's going to look like. Now, pesto is something that you can put on pizzas, on any kind of pasta dish. You can use it on bruschetta or a toast of any kind. It goes good on several different kinds of vegetables. Mrs. I loves pesto, and because of the garden center, they have a lot of basil, so they make pesto and they freeze it in ice cube trays and then put it in the freezer, so they just pop out what they need when they need it. I should start doing that myself. So, ta-da! Homemade pesto made from walnuts instead of pine nuts and dried basil instead of fresh. So when we make the Tuscan chicken, I will let you know how it turns out. Okay, we're ready to start the Tuscan chicken now. I have my pan on the stove, and I'm going to start heating up a good tablespoon or more of olive oil. Now, if you have a nonstick pan, you probably don't need quite that much. I have the stainless steel pans, so things will stick if I don't use a considerable amount. So I'm going to get that good and hot before I put the chicken in, because basically right now what I want to do is sear that chicken. I want to give it a nice finish on the outside. It doesn't necessarily have to cook all the way through for it to be done. In the meantime, over on the side, way over here, is my chicken breast, boneless, skinless chicken breast. I am going to give it a shake of the seasoning salt. I make my own seasoning salt. Whatever your family likes for seasoning, that's what you put on. I'll probably put a little extra garlic powder on the chicken too, because Mr. P and I really like garlic. So my chicken's still just a little frozen, not frozen solid, but it's got a stiffness to it, so I'll have to watch it. In the pan it goes. Start it cooking. And like I said, I'm going to get out my garlic powder, put a little extra on there, just sprinkling that because we like that. Okay, I'm going to brown it really good on both sides, probably about 4 minutes per side. Flip it over, do a 4 minutes on the second side, and then I'm going to take it out and set it aside. Okay, so after the chicken's done, you don't have to worry about it being overcooked or anything like that, just so it's not raw inside anymore. We're going to remove it from the pan. And I'm going to set that aside for now. It's going to go back in the pan once we're done here. But in the meantime, I'm going to put in 4 ounces of cream cheese right into the same pan with all the chicken fat and everything. 4 ounces of cream cheese, 1/4 cup of water, about 1/4 cup of pesto. This is the pesto I made earlier. And the fun thing when you're cooking like this is you don't have to worry, is it exactly 1/4 cup? Is it a little more, a little less? And then I've got about 2 cups of grape tomatoes, cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes, and I've sliced them in half. So I'm going to put those in there. Okay. That's it. I'm going to start mixing this. Once that cream cheese has melted and everything is mixed up, then I put the chicken right back in, cover it up, and I let it simmer for about 10 minutes. That's it. You can serve this over mashed potatoes. You can serve it over pasta. The sauce is really nice and rich. The last thing I do when I serve it is I'll top it with some shredded cheese. This is provolone, but you can use mozzarella or you can use an Italian blend if you prefer. And then a vegetable on the side. And we're good. Hang on and I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. So now the chicken is back in. I'm going to cover it and simmer it for about 10 minutes and then it'll be all ready. Okay, so I've had this simmering for almost 15 minutes. About 5 minutes or so in, I flipped the chicken over. I gave it another 5 minutes. I flipped it over again and then finished it off for that last 5 minutes. Now we're going to plate it. Okay, so I've plated up the chicken, and like I said, typically you just want to serve this over mashed potatoes or on top of pasta. Then you just scoop the sauce over the top. Instead, we're just having the chicken with the sauce and the green beans with some sauteed onions. And then I'm going to put a nice big helping of my shredded provolone over the top of that. And because it's nice and hot, it'll melt as it sits. And there we go. Tuscan chicken for supper tonight. Let me know if you make it, and we can see how it goes and compare notes, okay? Later, guys.